Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, I'm ScrapMan, bringing you another DevBlog review. Now, if you're not familiar with these, it's where I take a deep dive into the latest scrap mechanic DevBlog, looking at what information they have given us and what this might imply about the game and what this might mean for the future of scrap mechanics. So as usual, DevBlog 17 is filled with a bunch of hints and previews and teasers to what survival is going to be like, and also just a bunch of other updates that they're working on with the game that may make its way into the creative mode before survival. So let's go ahead and dive right in and see what this DevBlog has in store for us. All right, so after a brief overview of the challenge builder and the success that we've seen with that, they get into survival. So here we go. Let's start with the necessary but less fun background stuff we've been working on. When developing a game, it's common to build features and segments separately that eventually must be pieced together. For survival, we're now starting to weld these elements into one. For example, seamless transition from open world into a warehouse, or loading in rooms at the right time, and other related optimizations. So what that tells me is that the warehouses are going to be kind of like a different instance than the actual open world. So you might have to enter a warehouse as some type of like action rather than just simply walking into like a building. But they're trying to make the transition seamless, so I'm curious how that's actually going to look. So this has taken a lot of our time the last month, and there's still some knitting left to do, but it's really exciting to see these elements finally come together for a more cohesive survival experience. So I'm really looking forward. Like, survival just seems like it's going to be a whole nother experience compared to the creative mode gameplay. So let's go down here. We have a lot of GIFs of inside of a warehouse, presumably. You can definitely see the redness of all of this. So I don't know if that's how the warehouses are always going to look, or if this is particularly like an alarm state. It would be really interesting if you could actually go into a warehouse and kind of be in like a sneak mode where you don't actually trigger any enemies to be attacking you, but maybe you can get discovered, and then that's when it turns red, and then enemies might start attacking you. So here, I think we have what is referred to as the tape bot. And you can see our character is attacking with both the hammer and the spud gun. We take out a spud gun to start shooting it after hitting it with the hammer. And it looks like he has presumably a tape gun over here. And does he fire a shot in this one? I think, no, I don't actually see him firing in this one. But here, yeah, you could definitely see him firing here. I'm assuming that it's, since he's called a tape bot, that he's firing rolls of tape or strands of tape or something at you. And I'm wondering if he hits you, if any tape effect happens. Like, does it slow you down? Do you get damaged? We don't see any heads-up display here, so there's no indicator yet of how damage or health might be working. So here we have a GIF where he's not actually attacking. Oh, I'm just noticing that his head is a roll of tape. I didn't notice that before. So yeah, it looks like he has some scissors for melee and presumably a tape dispenser for ranged attack. So this is probably him just in scout mode where he doesn't actually know where you are yet, but he's looking for you. I'm curious what his field of vision is going to be like, if there's going to be sound indicators for him, if you're too loud from running versus like crouch walking or things like that, and if you can sneak up behind them to get some up-close sneak attacks or melee attacks. I wonder if any of that is going to be implemented into the game here. All right, you can see we got another battle going on here with this GIF. So now one thing I'm noticing about this GIF is, or these GIFs in general, is they seem like they take a lot of hits. Maybe you can't defeat him yet in this build, but if you can defeat him, then obviously he takes a lot of hits. So it says right here, too, that tape bots are tough. We're currently tweaking their behavior to make sure they're satisfying as possible to battle. We really want mechanics to respect the enemies in scrap mechanic. The tape bots will be very dangerous, and the players will need to be tactical, creative, and show quick reflexes in order to deal with them. So it could be just that these guys take a lot of hits, so you got to be able to avoid a lot of hits while dealing a lot of damage in order to take these guys out, which I think is awesome. Having an actual challenging opponent would be great. So we hope that this less forgiving approach to difficulty will make situations more tense and exciting. That actually makes me wonder, do you think they'll have difficulty settings? Because some people may or may not have an easier time with aiming and shooting and moving around. As well as a lot more fun in co-op where you and your friends can really work together to take enemies down. Now that would be interesting too with difficulty settings, because you could have like co-op difficulties where you might need to work together more than if you were just doing solo. So don't go running into the warehouses spraying and praying. You'll only end up knocked out next to all the great loot. So I'm wondering what type of loot we can find in the warehouses. Now there's something later on in the devblog that might be related to this, but I'm really curious if you can actually find parts like, for instance, thrusters or suspension or wheels, like actual building parts, or are you only going to be finding like base materials that you need to use as currency maybe to then purchase or craft building parts. All right, so moving on, it looks like we have a bunch of images here of the upgrade tiers. It seems like they're doing 5 levels, 5 tiers of upgrades for all the parts. So you can see we have the basic engine here, and it upgrades to all these different tiers. We have a controller here, which also upgrades. This one I was confused about for a little bit. I'm like, how do you make a controller better? So what I think is going to happen is you're actually going to get more connection points. So right now our controller has 10 connection points. So I'm wondering if that's going to be level 1, or if 10 might be mid-level and we start at like 5, then 7, then 10, then 15, and maybe even up to 20. Who knows where the tiers are going to start and where they're going to end. I'm also curious if maybe we'll have more speed ranges with the different tiers when it comes to these. Now, they have hinted at thruster upgrades before, saying that the basic thruster might not give you enough thrust to fly necessarily, and is more going to be like a booster for your creations. And then as you upgrade your thrusters, then they're going to be more viable as actual flying options. So we also have suspension upgrades here. This, I'm actually not too sure what the advantages are going to be other than having more stiffness settings, because that's all we can really do with suspension right now is stiffness settings. So I am really curious if there's going to be more to these than just different amounts of stiffness variability. And then we got this thing right here, which they teased an image of before without any explanation, but we have an explanation down here. So in the past weeks, we've been teasing some of the new upgradable interactive parts on our Twitter. Now you can see them in full 3D glory. Basically, we are working on letting mechanics upgrade the interactive parts in survival. These upgrades will allow things like more connections, faster speed, less gas consumption, and more. The sounds will also change from level to level. The way you will upgrade these parts is with the new component kit found when exploring the world. This new consumable will be highly sought after and something a lot of mechanics will look for. So that is presumably what this image right here is of. This is the component kit. So this is basically gonna be your upgrade item. It's probably going to be a one-time use, and you might have to choose what to use it on. So that's actually kind of interesting, thinking about if you have like more than one thruster and then you have a component upgrade kit, do you upgrade the thruster item as a whole or just a single instance of that thruster? So say if you have like 4 thrusters on your vehicle and then you find a component kit, can you just upgrade thrusters, or do you have to get a component kit to upgrade every single one of your thrusters? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What would you prefer, and what do you think they're actually going to be going for? It is kind of hard to predict since I don't really understand yet how they're approaching part limits and things like that for survival, but I think it would be cool if you could just upgrade the part as a whole, so then whenever you find those parts, you just have a better technology of that. But I guess we'll have to wait to find out. Okay, and up next we have some lift information. Look at this lift. Does this thing look awesome or what? So this is interesting here. So these are drawings. I don't think these are actually in-game screenshots. These are artistic renderings of the concepts here. So far, at least. We have here's an in-game screenshot, I think, right here. But this is an interesting image here because it shows that the lift appears to be actually generating a blueprint of a block here. And as we all know, our lifts now have the blueprint ability to build things that we've saved. But this one just shows like an individual block. This might be conceptual, but I'm wondering if there's going to be something different with how the lift functions and your inventory as well when it comes to using blocks and things like that. Because normally you place a block on a lift if you're going to build it from scratch, but this is showing the block seems to be generated from the lift. So that just could be a difference in how blueprints are going to be visualized in survival versus just instantly appearing. It might actually kind of materialize on the lift, which would be pretty cool. And then it looks like we're going to have a remote here for the lift rather than just the lift being a standalone thing and nothing in our hand. So it looks like here is a storyboard of the animation about how it's going to flip out and how it's going to look. The screen pops open. Oh, what is this saying here? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Activation particles and quick swell, maybe? Idle. carrying object. Okay, so this thing right here, you know when you go to spawn in something and you haven't placed it down on the lift yet, but it's ready to be spawned in, so you're looking for a place on the ground? So this is indicating that you actually have something ready to spawn on the lift versus just placing the lift down it by itself. And here we can see an actual in-game screenshot of what they got so far. And I think this lift, I loved this LED kind of pattern in the middle here. Okay, so here is what we have to say about it. When we started working on Scrap Mechanic, the lift was only for lifting stuff. But during the development, the lift had more functions added and overall became more useful for stuff such as spawning blueprints and a few more new functions coming out for survival. Okay, so they're hinting at there's more stuff that the lift is going to be doing in survival. So what we were looking at here, this might be an indication of something new that the lift might do, not actually just a visual overhaul of what it already does. So to match these new features, we've redesigned the lift to fit its uses visually. But on top of that, we're also adding a cool new lift remote that the mechanic will pull up when using the lift. We also might let mechanics put different cool charms on their remote. Okay, so you can see here we have a duck charm. So those might be kind of like aesthetic items that you might be able to find or unlock in the game somehow. Okay, so now moving on to the next set of images. It looks like this is based around character customization. So you can see this looks like the female character here. Interesting fashionable overalls of some, are those overalls? No, it looks like we have a belt here. These are pants and like a vest or something. I thought they were overalls at first. A nice straw hat. And check out the size of this warehouse behind her too. Yeah, look at this warehouse. That is massive. So there's definitely going to be a lot of floors to these warehouses. So I like this backpack. This backpack looks really cool. I like it much better than with the rods sticking out a lot. So that's a really nice backpack. Interesting gloves too. Those gloves don't go all the way up the arms like these ones do. These ones goes up to the elbow. These are just like normal gloves that just go to the wrist. We got some elbow pads on this character as well. Yeah, and then these are the other gloves again, but they're a different color. Another different type of backpack. And looks like the same kind of pant and vest as this person has right here. All right, and this guy has the rods that we all become so familiar with. And this looks like the standard backpack right now is just a slightly different shape. It's not quite as saggy as the other backpack. And then we got our last one here. This looks like it is the actual customization screen and showing the changing of the different outfit items. So we have it starts off with what looks like the standard outfit, and then you're seeing all the different changes. Looks like we got, did these shoes change at all here? No, it looks like this particular character is wearing socks with sandals throughout all of these different things. But you can see we got different pants. We got a different torso option. We got, looks like a combination pants and torso, different gloves, different hats. So let's take a look at what they have to say about it. After much toil, we finally got character customization up and running the way we wanted. It's really a bit of a shock in a good way to see our mechanic in so many different outfits suddenly running around in the game. We're sure you'll agree it's a lot of fun to style your mechanic and really make him your own. It was a lot of work, but we think it was worth it. Not only will you try to hunt down useful parts in survival, but also cosmetics to unlock that you can impress your mechanic friends with. So now I'm really hoping that this is going to be something that comes out before survival, because it seems like they already have it up and running the way they wanted. So I'm hoping that this can be implemented sooner rather than having to wait till survival comes out. Okay, up next we have some renderings of a type of world object here. Now, looking at it, this is something that we have to put things in and then it gives us something back. And it looks like we have carrots, maybe radishes or beets, bananas, and brown box. I'm not too sure. Potato? I know potatoes, that wouldn't be a potato. I don't know what that is. Let me know down in the comments what you think this object is right here. So it looks like it measures how much you put in of each object, and then it's going to give you something in return, I'm pretty sure. So here are some more images of it. Up here, it looks like it says carrots are going in. You can see a night rendering of it. It looks like we got two different styles. One of them is more of a rectangular style, but one of them has a wedge here that kind of angles the input measurements towards you, which is kind of interesting. All right, so presumably this is how the animation is going to function. You give it the input, it shakes around a little bit, and then it spits out something based off of what you put into it. And I'm assuming these images are a representation of what that is supposed to be. And it looks like there's different levels of it. So I'm guessing based on how much you put in, it might give you a bigger box back. And actually, the box itself doesn't look bigger. It just looks a little bit different, and it's overflowing a little bit more in each image. And then here, look, this one looks like an actual, is this an actual in-game shot? It looks like an actual in-game shot here of the machine. That is actually massive. So now looking at it, there's actually buttons, it appears, on these things. So I'm curious how these buttons are gonna work. Are you gonna kind of choose which one to have it draw from? Because when these are full, do you press the button and then the meter goes down or something like that? Or maybe there's like recipes that we can have. So if you have like your carrots and your bananas and your brown, and like you put in so many bars of carrots, and then you press this for so many bars, and then you press this for so many bars, and that's going to be a recipe to output something in particular. Now, I really wish this character wasn't right here, because there looks like there's an opening here of some sort, and I want to see more into there. Because these drawings, none of these drawings, do they, is that what it is there? That looks different. I don't know. There's an opening here. I'm wondering if that's actually an opening that we can interact with somehow. All right, so these are called packing stations. One way to accomplish farm requests in Scrap Mechanic will be to load up these mobile fruit and vegetable houses, thus making the produce ready for delivery to the farmer hideouts. All mechanics need to do is drive up to the correct socket and then fill it up until it spits out a packaged crate. But have your lifting creations ready because they need to be stacked and transported. Okay, so this seems to indicate that it's simpler than I was wondering it might be. So it says here you have to drive up to the correct socket. So I'm assuming that these are the different sockets, and then fill it up until it spits out a packaged crate. So you can definitely see we get the different meters here. So I'm wondering if you just keep going back and forth, bringing resources, filling it up, and then once one of them reaches the maximum, does it just spit out a crate of that one in particular, do you think? That's probably what it is based off of these images here. But it would be really interesting if we had different recipes that we could put in different amounts of each ones, and then we could get packages that mean different things. But I don't know exactly what we're doing with these packages yet, because apparently we need to stack these and transport them. So that means that these packages here are just going to be laying on the ground, and we can't pick them up as our character, so we need a vehicle that can actually transport these packages. You might have to pick them up with your vehicle, but it looks like maybe this X here marks where it's going to land. So if you park your vehicle there, maybe you can just catch it in your flatbed without having to have a mechanism to pick it up. But then you might need something to drop them off with. Okay, so coming up, this is actually really, really cool. This is going to bring a whole new realism to the game. So visual, spit and polish. The eagle-eyed among you will notice that we're really pushing the graphics in Scrap Mechanic these days. We want to make sure that by the time Survival comes out, the game as a whole will be much more visually appealing and moody experience. So here are a few new visual details. Dynamic lights will now both cast shadows and even take color into account. We have to be careful with this one since it's expensive, but we think we can optimize it enough to run well. Here's an example. What they mean by taking color into account is that different colored lights will actually blend to create a new color. So you can see here we have blue, we have red, and we have green. So just your basic RGB. And you can see as they move in closer, they form a white here. So RGB together will form white, and you can see that the blue and the red together form purple, and then the red and the green here form yellow. And then also the big thing here, even bigger to me than the fact that the colors merge, is the fact that they actually cast shadows when there are objects in between them. Currently in the game, light penetrates any objects that you build. So if you had these lights here, there would be no shadow here. It would just go through everything. So now you can see light actually gets blocked by objects. And you can see it gets blocked different amounts depending on how many lights are penetrating. And you can especially see right here with this bar right here, you can see it's blocking different levels of light, and it's creating lines here of different colors depending on how the colors merge. So when this blue one contracts, you can see that this is blocking the red and the green, so all you see is a blue strip here. However, the red spills over to here, so that strip becomes purple when the blue blends in with it, and then next to it becomes white because the green is able to reach over here. So that's going to allow for a lot more possibilities with lighting when it comes to shadows and colors overall. This is going to make the lighting feel so much more natural and realistic, and I think this is going to be an awesome upgrade. However, it will be performance heavy, as they've indicated here. That's what they meant by expensive. Expensive on your resources of your computer. Okay, we have another image here. We've also gone back and updated the old parts to make sure they fit the new updated Scrap Mechanic visual style. They really came out nicely. Let's see if you can spot the improvements. So now I've actually taken the liberty of replicating as precisely as I can this exact image here using the current parts in the game, so we can actually do a side-by-side, or rather top-down comparison of the new parts versus the old parts. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so here we go. Down on the bottom, we have the image that they've given us, and up on the top is what I've recreated in the game using the way that the game currently looks. Now, the first thing I notice is the environment itself looks very, very different. Just look at the ground here compared to the ground here. I think this looks much more visually appealing, much more realistic. This is just really bright and washed out. And just for reference, I put all of my graphic settings turned on and up to high. So everything like the foliage, the God rays, all that stuff is on and turned up to the maximum. So now starting from left to right, you can see that the bathtub down here clearly has some more texture to it. It has some wear and tear on the front here. It's got this little strip there as well. These knobs look much rounder, whereas these ones look much more like polygons. You can see the toilets. Down here, we got these 2 notches added, and just overall, it just looks much more round and more aesthetically pleasing. The logic gate symbol is much bigger on the bottom than it is on the top, so this is going to be easier to see. The timer, I am honestly not sure what the major difference is, other than the fact that the texture itself, like the metal texture, just looks a little bit different. It doesn't seem to be a huge difference between these 2 timers. All of the plants are very, very different, especially this plant here. Look at the difference between that and this. And even like these, like the leaves are much more, looks like defined. However, this one here is interesting. These leaves look a lot more real to me than these leaves. And this pot here, obviously one of the bigger differences between the 2. It actually has a little sprout in the middle now, and then the pot itself is chipped and broken in certain areas. So yeah, it seems like we're gonna have just a huge visual upgrade to pretty much everything in the game to look forward to. All right, let's get on to the rest of the devblog. Since metal is something that we have a lot of in Scrap Mechanic, we've also updated that to allow parts to have a nice shiny chrome effect. So you can definitely see that going on here. We have the daytime and the nighttime shot. So that's obviously just going to make metal things look a lot more appealing. I wonder how that might affect the metal material itself, like the draggable metal material. Thanks for your support and for playing. We will be back soon with more Scrap Mechanic news. All right, so that sums up the entire devblog. So I'm curious, what is your favorite piece of information that makes you the most excited about these updates coming out? I think for me, this is actually a really good question. For me, I think it's the upgrades. I think the upgrades are going to be a really key and really satisfying and fun part of the survival experience. And I'm really looking forward to learning how the different upgrades are going to impact the objects. And it's always so satisfying to be able to improve objects and improve your creations by actually going out and finding things and exploring. Although I almost forgot, the tape bot, like actually having like first-person battles and fights with robots is really going to be a lot of fun. This actually might be my favorite part of the upcoming survival mode, but second to that is going to be the upgradable parts. So let me know down in the comments below what are going to be your favorite parts. And if you missed the previous devblog review, I'm going to leave that up on the end screen right now. Make sure you go check that out if you haven't, because it just has different stuff in that review that isn't in this. So it'll give a more complete picture of survival. Anyway, I hope I've earned your subscription and like if you enjoyed the video. This has been ScrapMan, and I'll see you next time. Bye.